Hello, my dear students, and welcome back. Exams are just around the corner, and I know the pressure is building up. But please, don't worry, your favorite tutor is here to make things just a little bit easier for you.
I know. थोड़ा tension हो रहा है, right? But hey, don't you worry at all. Today, we're going to take a little break from all the heavy stuff and do a super quick revision of a really funny chapter in the Kingdom of Fools. It's light, it's easy, so just sit back and let's go through the story together. And hey, if you find this helpful, please do hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what chapter you want me to cover next.
All right, let's dive right into this crazy story. So, I want you to imagine a kingdom, but not just any kingdom. This place is totally topsy-turvy, completely ulta-pulta. And why? Because it's ruled by a king and his minister who are, well, let's just say they weren't the sharpest tools in the shed. Their biggest mission in life was to be different from everybody else, even if their ideas were completely bonkers.
So what's the first brilliant idea they come up with? They decide to flip everything upside down. They passed a rule saying that from now on, day would be night and night would be day. Can you even imagine that? The whole kingdom, even the poor animals, had to sleep all day and only start working after sunset. What a crazy, crazy schedule.
But right, it gets even weirder. The king's foolishness didn't stop there. He also declared that every single thing in the kingdom would cost the exact same price. Just one single doo-doo. It didn't matter if you wanted a huge bunch of bananas or a big bag of rice, it was all for one doo-doo. Now, you can imagine when the disciple in our story saw this, he was overjoyed. He was a total foodie, and now he could eat as much as he wanted without worrying about money.
But his guru, now he was a very wise man. He immediately saw the danger hiding behind all this cheap food. He knew that living in a kingdom run by fools was basically a recipe for disaster. He tried to warn his disciple. He said, "They are all fools. This won't last very long, and you can't tell what they'll do to you next." But the disciple, he was so blinded by his greed for cheap food, he just didn't listen.
And you know what? The guru was absolutely right. It didn't take long for big trouble to show up. This next part of the story is like one of those funny blame game videos you see online, with everyone just pointing fingers at each other. And it all starts because a thief dies. Yes, you heard that right, a thief.
So here's what goes down. A thief is breaking into a rich merchant's house, but the wall collapses on him and he dies. Now, instead of being sad, the thief's brother marches right up to the king and demands justice. And who does the king call to court first? Not the thief's family. No, he calls the owner of the house the rich merchant.
The merchant is obviously terrified for his life, so he quickly thinks of an excuse. He tells the king, "Your Majesty, it's not my fault. This wall was built a long, long time ago, during my father's time. It's the bricklayer's fault. He didn't build it properly." And just like that, the blame gets passed on.
So, next up, they're bringing the old bricklayer to the court. And what's his excuse? He says he couldn't concentrate on building the wall properly because he was distracted by this dancing girl. Apparently, she was walking up and down the street all day and her anklets were jingling and he just couldn't focus. So poof, the blame is passed on again.
Then the court calls for the dancing girl, who's an old woman by now. And she says, "Yes, I was walking up and down the street. But I had a good reason. I was waiting for a goldsmith to finish making my jewelry. But he was so lazy and kept making me wait. He made me walk to his shop a dozen times. So you see, it's all the goldsmith's fault."
And now, for the final twist in this blame game. They bring the goldsmith to the court, and he explains he was delayed because he had to finish a big order for a rich merchant who had a wedding at home. And can you guess who that rich merchant was? Yep, it was the father of the very same merchant who was accused in the first place. The blame had come in a full circle, right back to where it all started.
So after all this drama, the king finally decides the merchant has to be punished for his father's mistake. But just as they're about to execute him, they hit another problem. It's actually pretty funny. The merchant is too thin to fit the execution stake they had prepared.
So, what does this foolish king do? Does he maybe rethink the whole thing? Of course not. He just tells his men, "Go and find a man who is fat enough to fit this stake." And who do they find roaming the streets, having gotten nice and plump from all the cheap bananas and rice? You guessed it, our poor disciple.
The disciple is terrified. He's about to be executed for no reason. In his panic, he prays and remembers his wise guru. And just like magic, the guru appears. He walks straight up to the king and asks him a very simple but very clever question. "O wisest of all kings, tell me, Who is greater, the guru or the disciple?
The king, wanting to sound wise, immediately says, "Of course, the guru is greater." And the guru then says, "In that case, you must execute me first." The king is totally confused. Why would anyone want to die? So the guru leans in and whispers a little secret in the king's ear. He tells him, "This isn't just any stake, oh no. This is the stake of justice, and the first person to die on it will be reborn as the king of this entire country in their next life."
And this, my dear students, is the guru's masterstroke. The king, being so greedy and so foolish, completely falls for this story. Hook, line, and sinker. The idea of losing his kingdom, even in his next life, was just too much for him to bear.
So what does he do? That very night, the king and his minister secretly sneak into the prison. They free the guru and the disciple, put on their clothes, and take their place at the execution stake. The executioners, just following orders, come and execute them, having no idea they just killed their own king and minister. The next morning, the people of the kingdom find their foolish king and minister dead. And honestly, they're pretty relieved. They find the wise guru and his disciple and literally beg them to become their new king and minister. The guru agrees, and together they finally bring some sense and order back to the kingdom.
And that, my dear Battu, is the end of the story. A pretty funny tale, but with a really strong message, isn't it? Okay, story time's over. Now let's get down to business and look at some important questions from this chapter that might just pop up in your exam. So put on your thinking caps, let's do this.
All right, first question, and this is a classic one. Why did the disciple decide to stay in the kingdom of fools even after his guru warned him not to? Take a second to think about it. What was so tempting about that place for him?
The answer is really simple if you break it down. First, everything was super cheap, just one doo-doo for anything. For a foodie, that's a dream come true. Second, this meant he could eat all he wanted whenever he wanted. Third, his greed just took over, and he completely ignored his guru's very wise advice. And lastly, he foolishly thought nothing bad could happen to him there. It's a simple 4-point answer.
Okay, next question. This one is about the climax of the story, so pay close attention. How did the guru use his wisdom to save his disciple's life at the very last minute?
Again, it's all about the guru's cleverness. See, the guru had a brilliant plan. He understood that the king was both foolish and incredibly greedy. So he made up that fantastic story about the stake, that whoever died on it first would be reborn a king. The greedy king couldn't resist that offer, and he believed every word. So he took the disciple's place, and that's how the guru saved him. It was wisdom winning over foolishness, plain and simple.
And for our last one, here's a question for you to really think about. What do you think is the most important lesson this story teaches us about foolishness and wisdom? I want you to give it some thought and tell me what you think in the comments below. And with that, we're done with our revision. I really hope this was helpful. All the very best for your exams, my dear bachcho. I know you will all do great. Bye-bye.